Loneliness. It creeps in silently, yet it weighs heavier than stone. You can be surrounded by people, scrolling endlessly through messages, sitting in a crowded room, and still feel completely invisible. That sting of being forgotten. That silence when no one reaches out. It's a kind of suffering that eats away at your spirit. And if you've ever felt it, you know the truth. Loneliness isn't just empty space, it's a loud reminder that the world can move on without you. But here's the paradox. The Stoics believed that loneliness is not a curse, it's an invitation. An invitation to discover your strength, to sharpen your mind, to cultivate a fortress within that no absence can shake. Loneliness hurts when we fear it. But when we embrace it, we rise above it. Today, you will learn 8 timeless Stoic practices that will transform loneliness from your greatest weakness into your greatest teacher. You will learn how to walk alone and rise alone. In every age, people have battled loneliness. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote his meditations alone in his tent during war. Seneca, one of Rome's richest men, often lived in solitude, exiled, far from the crowd he once knew. Epictetus, once a slave, learned the deepest truths not in noise, but in silence. They faced what we face today, the ache of separation, the fear of being unseen, the quiet that feels unbearable. But instead of crumbling, they turned solitude into their training ground. They discovered a truth modern life often hides. When you can stand alone, you are free. This video is not about escaping loneliness, it's about mastering it. You will see 8 Stoic practices that will reframe the way you look at solitude forever. Each practice is not theory, it's a tool, a habit, a mindset. If you apply them, you won't just endure loneliness, you'll rise above it, stronger, calmer, unshakable. Classical building Law 1. Shift loneliness into solitude. Loneliness is suffering. Solitude is strength. The only difference between the two is perception. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." He was surrounded by war, betrayal, and endless political noise, yet he found peace, not in others, but within himself. Loneliness tells you that you are abandoned. Solitude tells you that you are with yourself. And who you are with, yourself, is someone worth knowing. The problem is that we are taught to fear silence, to fear being alone. That's why so many of us chase distraction, social media, constant texting, shallow company, just to escape the thought of being by ourselves. But this is weakness, not strength. The Stoics flipped the script. Solitude was their classroom. It was where they journaled, reflected, questioned, and grew. The hours alone were not wasted, they were invested. So the next time loneliness presses down, shift the language. Don't say, "I'm lonely." Say, "I am in solitude." Don't say, "I'm abandoned." Say, "I am retreating to myself." That small shift in perception is revolutionary. Solitude is the place where clarity is born. It's where you finally hear your own voice instead of the crowd's. It's where you stop performing for others and start listening to who you truly are. The Stoic practice here is not to resist the quiet, but to welcome it. Treat your solitude as sacred time. Read deeply. Reflect honestly. Walk slowly. Ask yourself the hard questions. Build strength in the silence so that when you return to the noise of life, you return unshaken. Loneliness is a wound. Solitude is a weapon. Learn the difference, and your time alone will no longer be emptiness. It will be your greatest advantage. Law 2. Practice voluntary discomfort. Seneca once advised, set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest of fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition I feared? This is the Stoic practice of voluntary discomfort. At first glance, it seems harsh. Why would anyone willingly make life harder? But here's the wisdom. When you learn to endure discomfort, you no longer fear it. And much of loneliness is just fear. Fear of being unwanted, fear of not fitting in, fear of being forgotten. By practicing voluntary discomfort, you prove to yourself that you can survive without the things, or even the people, you think you can't live without. Think about it. Why does loneliness sting so much? Because we feel dependent on others to validate our worth. When people leave, when the phone stays silent, we crumble. But if you've trained yourself to endure hunger, cold, silence, and lack, you begin to realize, I need far less than I thought. I can endure far more than I imagined. This isn't about punishing yourself. It's about strengthening yourself. The Stoics would intentionally spend days eating simple meals, sleeping on the floor, or dressing plainly, even though they had the means for comfort. Why? Because when life later stripped those comforts away, they wouldn't collapse. They were already prepared. For loneliness, the same principle applies. Take time deliberately to sit without distraction. Spend a day without social media, without reaching for constant company. At first, it will feel unbearable, like an itch you can't scratch. But then something shifts. You realize you don't need constant connection to be whole. You can walk alone and still stand tall. When you face voluntary discomfort, you make peace with solitude. You stop seeing silence as an enemy and start seeing it as training. So ask yourself, what's the condition you fear? Is it silence? Being ignored? Being left out? Then practice it. Sit in it. Endure it, on your terms. Because when you choose discomfort, loneliness loses its power. You are no longer a prisoner to fear. You become someone unshakable, whether surrounded by crowds or standing alone. Classical building Law 3. Journal relentlessly. When loneliness weighs heavy, the mind becomes a battlefield. Thoughts spiral, doubts multiply, and silence turns into noise. The Stoics found a weapon against this chaos, the practice of journaling. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was not written for us, it was written for himself. A private dialogue, a way to wrestle with his own fears, doubts, and solitude. Epictetus urged his students, examine yourself. Test yourself. Discover who you are. And Seneca wrote letters not just to his friends, but to himself as a way to think more clearly. This is why journaling matters. When you are alone, your mind tends to exaggerate. A single silence feels like rejection. One missed message feels like abandonment. But when you take those feelings and put them on paper, they lose their power. They become words, not monsters. Think of journaling as a mirror. It reflects your mind back to you. It shows you your patterns, your triggers, your fears. And in that reflection, you can separate what is in your control from what is not. Maybe you write, "I feel forgotten by my friends." Pause. Is that truth or perception? Maybe they are busy. Maybe it is your interpretation. Writing slows down the storm, forcing you to look at it rationally instead of emotionally. The Stoics believed in constant self-examination. Journaling is that examination in action. It's not about writing beautifully, it's about writing honestly. You don't need pages of wisdom. Sometimes a single line can shift your perspective. Try this. Each night, write 3 things. First, what you feared or struggled with today. Second, how you responded. Third, how you will respond better tomorrow. Over time, this becomes a compass that points you toward resilience. In loneliness, journaling is a companion. It is your silent friend, your therapist, your teacher. It doesn't speak back, but it listens. And sometimes, that's enough. So, the next time silence feels unbearable, don't reach for distraction. Reach for your journal. Write down your thoughts, no matter how messy. You'll find that in writing, you are never truly alone. You are in conversation with your deepest self. Law 4. Walk in nature alone. The Stoics believed that nature was not just scenery, it was medicine. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to align with the natural order, to see himself as part of the whole, not separate from it. And when loneliness strikes, one of the most powerful Stoic practices is this: walk in nature alone. Think about it. Loneliness makes us feel cut off, disconnected, as if we don't belong anywhere. But a quiet walk in the forest, by the sea, or even in a park reminds us of something profound. You are not separate, you are part of everything. The rustling trees, the moving clouds, the flowing water, all of it speaks the language of connection. Epictetus once said, "You are a fragment of God. You carry within you a portion of Him." In other words, the universe lives in you, and you in it. When you step outside and breathe deeply, you realize you were never truly alone. You are woven into the fabric of existence itself. Modern loneliness thrives indoors, behind screens, in artificial spaces. But nature restores perspective. The vastness of the sky makes your problems smaller. The timelessness of the earth humbles your ego. The simplicity of a flower blooming shows you that life continues, whether people come or go. A Stoic walk in nature is not about escape, it is about return. A return to yourself, a return to simplicity, a return to what truly matters. So when the silence feels unbearable, don't just sit in your room scrolling endlessly. Step outside. Walk slowly. Notice the air, the colors, the rhythm of life around you. Let nature remind you that you are not abandoned, you are part of something infinitely larger. Because in truth, loneliness is only possible when you forget your connection to the universe. And a single walk among the trees can remind you of what the Stoics always knew: you are never truly alone. Law 5. Control what you can, release what you can't. At the heart of Stoicism lies a single, life-changing principle: the dichotomy of control. Epictetus said it plainly: some things are up to us, and some things are not. Loneliness often feels unbearable because we forget this truth. We crave control over things that are not ours, whether people stay, whether they care, whether they reach out, whether they understand us. And when they don't, we suffer twice, first from the loss, and then from the illusion that we could have stopped it. The Stoics remind us, you cannot control who leaves your life, but you can control how you respond. You cannot force someone to value you, but you can value yourself. You cannot command the presence of others, but you can command the strength of your own mind. Think of loneliness as an invitation to practice this discipline. Every time you feel abandoned, pause and ask, is this within my control or not? If it is not, release it. Why cling to what is beyond you? If it is within your control, your choices, your thoughts, your actions, then focus your entire effort there. Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That includes the power to frame your solitude as growth rather than punishment. When you shift focus from the external to the internal, loneliness begins to lose its teeth. You stop waiting for others to save you and start strengthening the one person who has always been with you, you. Of course, this is not easy. The pull to cling, to demand, to hope for others' validation is strong. But each time you practice letting go of what you cannot control, you lighten the burden. You rise a little higher. The Stoics did not live in isolation because they hated people. They lived prepared for the reality that people are unpredictable. Their strength came from within. So when loneliness visits you, remember Epictetus's wisdom. Focus only on what is yours to command. Release the rest. Because freedom, true freedom, begins where control ends. Classical building Law 6, embrace creative work. The Stoics never wasted solitude. They transformed it into creation. Marcus Aurelius, weighed down by the burden of ruling an empire, spent his nights writing the Meditations. Seneca, often isolated, poured his wisdom into letters that would outlive him by centuries. Epictetus, born a slave, turned his silence into teachings that reshaped lives. For them, solitude was not emptiness, it was fuel. And this is your challenge. When loneliness arrives, don't drown it in distraction. Channel it into creation. Think about what happens when you're alone. Your mind aches for company. But that restless energy is raw material. You can direct it toward writing, painting, building, learning, or creating something meaningful. Every time you choose creation over despair, you prove that your solitude has value. Modern loneliness often drives people toward endless scrolling, binge-watching, or numbing the pain with shallow pleasures. But these only deepen the void. The Stoic way is different. Use the silence to bring forth something that did not exist before. When Seneca was exiled, he didn't crumble, he wrote some of his greatest works. When Marcus Aurelius felt isolated in the chaos of war, he produced thoughts that still guide millions today. They turned exile into influence, silence into strength, absence into abundance. You don't have to create masterpieces. Write a single page. Sketch a simple drawing. Record your thoughts. Build something small. The point isn't perfection, the point is transformation. You are proving to yourself that your loneliness is not wasted time. It is fertile ground. So, the next time you sit alone and the silence presses heavy on your chest, ask yourself, what can I create with this moment? The answer doesn't have to impress anyone. It only has to free you. Because when you choose creation, loneliness is no longer a weight, it becomes wings. Classical building #Law 7. Become a fortress within. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself often, look within. Within is the fountain of good, and it will ever bubble up if you will ever dig. This is the Stoics' final answer to loneliness, to become a fortress within. What does this mean? It means building such inner strength that no absence, no rejection, no solitude can break you. People may leave, but your peace stays. Friends may forget you, but your character remains. Even if the world turns its back, your soul stands unshaken. Loneliness hurts because we let our stability depend on others. We think, if they love me, I'm whole. If they leave me, I'm broken. But the Stoics knew this was dangerous. If your peace depends on others, you will always be a prisoner. Freedom comes only when your peace depends on yourself. The fortress within is not coldness. It is not arrogance. It is self-sufficiency. It is knowing that even if every voice around you goes silent, you still have the one voice that matters, your own. How do you build it? Through practice. Each time you face discomfort and endure it, another stone is laid. Each page you journal, each moment you meditate, each choice you make with courage, another wall rises. Slowly, brick by brick, you create an inner citadel that no storm of loneliness can penetrate. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And mastery begins here, by choosing not to hand your worth to anyone else. Imagine your mind as a fortress. Loneliness comes knocking, whispering lies, you are forgotten. You are nothing. But your walls stand tall. Your virtues, wisdom, courage, justice, temperance, guard the gates. Inside, you are safe. Inside, you are strong. The world will never stop shifting. People will always come and go. But if you are a fortress within, you walk through solitude with calm, with strength, with dignity. This is the highest Stoic practice. To not just survive loneliness, but to rise above it, untouchable, unshakable. To walk alone, and still stand as if surrounded by an army, because the army lives inside you. Law 8. Cultivate inner friendship. Loneliness feels unbearable because we believe our worth depends on others. We crave company, validation, and conversation, thinking they are the only cures for the silence. But the Stoics teach us something radical: learn to be your own companion. Marcus Aurelius often wrote letters, not to others, but to himself. His meditations are essentially conversations with his own soul. Seneca said, "The wise man is content with himself." Not because he hated people, but because he had learned the rare art of inner friendship. Inner friendship means treating yourself as someone worth spending time with. Instead of avoiding silence, you lean into it. You talk to yourself honestly in your journal. You take yourself for walks in nature. You engage in work that nourishes your spirit. You listen, not to the crowd, but to your own reason. When you practice inner friendship, solitude no longer feels like abandonment. It becomes intimacy. Instead of thinking, "No one is here for me," you learn to say, "I am here for myself." This doesn't mean you isolate forever or reject human connection. The Stoics valued friendship deeply, but they also warned against dependency. If your happiness relies solely on others, you are vulnerable. If you learn to enjoy your own company, then when others are present, you rejoice, and when they are absent, you remain at peace. The modern world teaches us to fear being alone, to constantly seek external stimulation. But the Stoic flips this: the one who cannot sit quietly with themselves is not free. So practice inner friendship daily. Speak kindly to yourself. Correct yourself firmly when needed. Reflect, learn, and laugh alone. Treat yourself as someone worthy of companionship. Because once you master being your own friend, loneliness loses its bite. You walk into solitude not with dread, but with dignity. And you rise from it, not empty, but whole. Loneliness will always visit you. People will drift away, friends will grow distant, silence will surround you. But the Stoics remind us, this is not the end, it is the beginning. Solitude is not weakness, it is training. Each practice you've learned, shifting perspective, enduring discomfort, journaling, walking in nature, focusing on what's yours, creating, building strength, and cultivating inner friendship, turns loneliness into power. So, the next time you find yourself alone, don't despair. Walk alone, rise alone, and discover that you were never truly alone. You had yourself all along. If this spoke to you, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom.